All right, everybody, it's Quantum Mechanic here. I'm going to go through the van. I already showed you guys my 90% box, which actually lives right here in this space, and the little cart that it goes on, which is right here, and my larger toolbox, which I access from the side. This is just a GMC Chevy Express kind of van. Nothing too crazy. Pretty basic, but it works great. It hauls everything I need. Has plenty of power. So let's just go through, and I'm going to show you guys what I use the most, which is kind of accessible from the back of the van, and then I'll go through and partition out these in 3 sections so you guys can kind of see it, and I'll splice it all together. All right, so first up, let's start with this tower here. This is what I use a lot. So these are all of my consumables, like brake cleaner, power steering fluid, just some generic kind of chemicals that I use a lot. Starting fluid, I use that a lot for testing whether or not you have a bad fuel pump. So if it starts with starting fluid, you have a fuel delivery problem. These are my good batteries. These are the charged batteries. My radio that I like to use, or my Bluetooth speaker I use on bigger jobs. I like to keep the volume down so I don't disturb the customer or the neighbors, and play respectful music always. Then this is a fan for the summertime. This is about as close as you'll see to me having a nuts and bolts bin. Okay, these are kind of like 10 millimeter bolts of assorted sizes. I don't keep nuts and bolts, spare nuts and bolts. I think it's a gigantic waste of time. You have those bins that mechanics put nuts and bolts in, even on their toolboxes. 1, it takes up a lot of room. 2, it's heavy. And 3, even if you go to grab a bolt that might fit an application, you don't know if it's going to be the right grade bolt. So if it's a suspension component, it might call for a grade 8 or grade 9 bolt, and you're putting, something way less strong in there, and that's kind of dangerous. So for me, and you waste time, when you go to look through the bolt bin, you just waste so much time doing it. So for me, if the customer doesn't have the right bolt or it got stripped out or whatever, you know what? We just order it straight from the dealership. And unfortunately, if there's a delay time, there's a delay time. But I would rather know that I'm getting the right bolt than to put in the wrong stuff. So I don't keep nuts and bolts. This is as many as I have. I keep this dielectric grease. This is really good for installing stubborn hoses, that they don't want to quite fit over. You put a little bit of grease on there, this dielectric grease, it works great. It's also fantastic for, obviously, spark plugs. So especially if you're working on Subarus and you're trying to get those stubborn, coil boots over the spark plug on the side of the engine, you really got to lube it up with this in order to get them to slide over. So this is great. This is an extra light I don't use too much. These are dead batteries, so when the battery dies, I know to put them here so I can charge them up. I keep enough batteries that I kind of wait till I have 2 or 3 of these batteries in here before I actually charge them up. This mid-torque is, like I said before, this is all the power I'll need for pretty much anything. So this comes out 90% of the time. I use it for taking off, like I said, lug nuts. It lives with this Mac flip socket, 19 and 21. And it's great. It works fantastically. It works when I do suspension jobs. Anytime my Gen 2 M12 stubby doesn't pull it off, this does, and it's a 1/2 inch. So this is kind of PPE. So I have a couple of pairs of gloves. I don't like wearing these styles of gloves, only because I don't get the dexterity that I want, and these wear out kind of quickly. So I really like latex gloves. A good quality 7mm nitrile glove, and I like to have like a high visibility color. I'm not a big fan of the black gloves because then you kind of lose them in the engine bay if they break or rip or just otherwise come off. I have a headlamp. This is made for a hard hat. It's okay. I like this is the rechargeable one, which is why I like it. It's plenty powerful. It lasts a good long time. But the problem is if you're underneath a car, this is on the back of your head. So when you go to lay your head down on the ground, this kind of gets in the way. So I have another headlamp that I use that's just 3 AAA batteries here in the front, which is probably what I would recommend to you guys over this one, even though this is a lot more expensive. I like these cheap safety glasses because they're less than $1 and they're easy to replace, and they fit well. They have good clarity, and they get scratched up all the time, so I just replace them when they do. This right here, this is fantastic for jump starting cars. Like I told you guys before, I have a 1 hour minimum, and if the car won't start, this comes out, start the car, jump it, test the alternator, do a bunch of other stuff. But this comes out all the time, and this will jump start, big trucks, probably not a diesel truck. I've tried on those before, it doesn't quite work, but it'll jumpstart this van and pretty much anything else. So this thing works really good. I use it all the time for jumping cars, and I can get a couple of jumps out of it. And I showed you guys this before. These are my lug nut sockets and my gear wrench swivel sockets. And this is like kind of just trash, extra caps. This is the soap I use for soap testing. I'll show you guys that in a second. But yeah, and then this is my trash can. I like to use these microfiber cloths. You see a whole bunch of them up there. They're pretty cheap. I still like to use the blue cloths, don't get me wrong, but these just are so much better at cleaning, and they hold brake cleaner really well, and they clean your hands really nicely, and they're just well worth the extra money that you pay for them. Okay, so on this door, this had a plastic cover. I took the plastic cover off because I wanted the storage kind of in between. So I use this funnel sometimes every once in a while. I got some mass airflow cleaner here in the back. And then this is PB Blaster, my favorite kind of penetrating fluid, some brake parts cleaner. And then this right here, this is a little mechanic hack for you, if you will. This is just baby powder, okay? What this is for is when I change my gloves out, you know, I don't like having dirty hands. So when my hands get nice and sweaty inside these gloves, especially on a hot day, and let's say I rip a glove, or they just get soiled and I'm moving on to a clean part of the project and I don't want to use dirty gloves, whatever the case may be. When I take these off, I don't have to wait for my hands to dry. Because if you ever try to put gloves on, latex gloves with semi-wet hands, it's a nightmare. So what I do is I just take this baby powder and I baby powder my hands up just like that, and boom, I slide right into that new pair of gloves like kind of like a greased pig. But this stuff has worked great and it smells good. You know, I don't know how good it is for your skin. That's a whole nother argument. But this stuff works fantastically for putting on a new pair of gloves. So I like to keep some of this stuff on there. And I really like these blue, these blue shop rags. They're really great. They work for a slew of things. Extra cards for the customer. So I keep, 10 or 20 cards in here. So when I'm talking to the customer, putting my tools away, I can hand them one or two. Or when people come up to me while I'm working on a job, I oftentimes get asked for the phone number. They either take a picture of the van or whatever. So I can just give them that. Got to have a fire extinguisher always. All right, so on this side of the door, this is what I use. This is a really good. I actually bought this from a customer. This is a magnetic brake bleeder kind of receiver. It's really, really great. So yeah, I keep a little bit of brake fluid, and this is also allows me, so I'll clean this out when I do a brake flush to show the customer how dirty their fluid is. It's really good. This is a foaming battery terminal cleaner. This is brake parts cleaner. This is a battery terminal protector. I like to throw that on there. I use these cheap battery terminal cleaners as well. Now this in the back, this is a fluid suction. I used to use this for sucking out fluids like old brake fluid from the reservoir, or power steering fluid or something like that. But I recently upgraded to something else, which I'll show you guys in a minute. One of those very large suction tanks, which is great. Okay, so this right here, this is just soapy water. Okay, I use this so when I'm looking for coolant leaks, I'll pressure test the coolant system with air, and then I'll spray this around to look for air leaks. It's called a soap bubble test. This works really great for that. I keep spare degreaser right here and degreaser up there. So I don't like those. I like to use degreaser to clean my tools. So basically what I do is I spray one of these microfiber cloths down with that degreaser, and I can either clean my hands if my hands get dirty, or I can wipe my tools down, and it just works really, really great. Way better than any of those tub of towels or wipes or anything like that. This degreaser with a cloth, it's easier and faster to clean your tools, and it lasts longer, and you can do all your tools with one cloth and still have room to spare. Okay, so I really like these mats. Okay, these are made by Duratec. A bunch of other companies make them, but I like these mats right here. I use them all the time. I don't like having my tools on the ground, okay? And I also don't like having the fasteners in those magnetic trays, because the back of the tray, the magnetic tray, can scratch the customer's car. And then sometimes when you go to put stuff in there that's not magnetic, it's just, honestly, it's a good system. I just don't like it. And these are large enough that I can fit my ratchets and my sockets and stuff on like that on there. So I bring these two out for every single job, and it sits on the car. You can put them at weird angles, and they're grippy on the back, so they're not falling over. I've never had one of these tip over or fall or anything like that, and they just work great. So I like these, and they're pink, which is, my business color, which I like. And these two live up here. But this one is good if I'm doing something underneath the car, right? Or if I'm sitting on the car, any kind of suspension work, or I'm going to be like, I don't really have access to the cart, so to speak. this comes out because, one, I can lay all my tools out, the long ratchets, all the fastener stuff. It kind of acts as a catch-all towards the end of it, but it works really great. And then I don't have to have my tools on the ground. Not because I care about my tools getting scratched up, or they're not going to dirty up the concrete either. It just doesn't look professional. So I like to be very professional with the customers, and you know, it just having your tools on the ground just kind of doesn't look professional, right? That's all I can say. All right, put that there. And that one kind of lives on those two magnets. Now we'll scoot on over to this. So this is just a cheap battery tester I use. It's basically a heating element. It's really hard to mess up something like this. So this is just a cheap Harbor Freight one. But this is really good for load testing batteries. I always like to keep zip ties up here as well. I cut a little slit in the middle, makes it easier to pull them out without them all falling over the place. I like these ramps. I prefer the Pittsburgh ramps over the Rhino ramps that kind of go into each other. Even though it takes up less room, these have a lot higher weight capacity. All right, and then I have like a wheel stop down here, another wheel stop I made out of wood just in case. And then you always gotta have a block of wood just in case for adding a little bit of height, or if you're gonna jack up an engine and you don't wanna jack anything up, okay? All right, and then this is a knee pad. This is really nice to have. I go through these all the time, so they're kind of, you know, when they wear out, I just get a new one. Now this is my absolute favorite jack. This is the Daytona 2-ton aluminum jack. This thing is fantastic. It's super lightweight, and it can lift just about anything. It doesn't have the highest height clearance, which is why I have that big 3-ton jack in the back. That one's pretty much solely for lifted trucks. Okay, so moving on from that, and it's super lightweight, like I said, so I'm not breaking my back trying to get it in and out of the van. I can like curl this thing with one arm, and it's just really great. It doesn't take up a lot of room. Really, really good jack. Love to have that. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, this is my most used like blow molded cases type stuff. So we'll talk about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay everything out and kind of put it away as I show it to you guys. And then this one over here, this is like where my parts go. So you'll see I have some like spark plugs. I have some sensors in there that I'm going to replace coming up in the next couple days. So this is going to be my parts, my 2 parts, smaller parts, shelves, if you will. And then when I have large things, like if I'm doing a large catalytic converter or just something that takes up a lot of room, it goes in the middle here. And then here we have, that's going to be my oil catch. That's for old oil. That works great. Back there, that crate there, that's going to be for any kind of like coolant that I'm doing. So let's say I'm doing a coolant job, I'll have, or a radiator or something like that, I'll have extra coolant in here. I don't like to use these all vehicles antifreeze, but if I'm working on a really, really, really old car and it already has this stuff in there, that's why I have it, kind of for emergencies. Okay. All right, so coming over here, I moved my fluid extractor. I used to have the old Mighty Vac fluid extractor. This is the Holt one that they have at Harbor Freight. It went on sale. I went ahead and bought it. It's a hand pump. It's for sucking out any kind of fluid you can think of. And if it's anything as good as the Mighty Vac one, this will be worth its weight, because I've had an old one and it works. It's such a time saver. I love that thing. All right, so moving up here, this is where I keep some of my N95 masks. So, you know, believe it or not, some of the old brakes have like asbestos and stuff like that in there. And I'm not like super concerned about it, but every once in a while I like to pull that mask out just in case. I got some baby oil here. You know, y'all's favorite rapper dropped that off for me. This goes into my smoke machine. So this is the smoke machine I use, the little handheld one. This thing works great. This is for obviously testing any kind of evap leak, you know, and it's powered from the battery. It doesn't have a regulator on it, and it doesn't have a flow meter on it, so I can't really tell, you know, but you can see when smoke's coming out. It's pretty obvious. And then all the attachments and stuff for that are going here as well. Extra tape in here, some razor blades, extra zip ties. That's that one. This is just a cheap battery charger, so if I know I'm going to be on job for a while, or if there's a parasitic draw or something like that, I'll bust this out to help prolong the battery, so to speak, while I'm there. Jumper cables, which I very rarely use because I have that jump starter. These is those extra rags I was talking about. And then I have a nice thick extension cord here, which I pretty much only use when I'm using all of my AC equipment, which we'll get into that in a second. I've shown you guys this before. This is my electrical kind of crash box, if you will. I have some spare. Anytime I kind of do electrical repair, I like to wrap it into this wire protector. I have some extra, just some electrical cable and wire and stuff like that. All right, this is where my timing light lives, okay? So anytime you're working on any kind of classic car, you gotta have a timing light, a good timing light. I have a vacuum gauge as well. If you know anything about classic cars, maybe I'll do some videos on this, but you can do a lot with a vacuum gauge. So that's pretty neat. This is just a really cheap kind of hand pump. I don't recommend you use anything like this for bleeding brakes. They call it a one-man brake bleeding kit, but no way. You're going to put more air into your brakes than anything. This thing, it just doesn't work very well. So I have that brake pressure where it pressurizes the master cylinder. That's much better. And this is some spray paint for the van that I haven't got around to using. So on this shelf here, what lives is my metric tap and die set, and then I have a standard tap and die set. It's just a cheap tap and die set. I need to upgrade, but it's been working for me. And then all these cases right here, this is kind of like a master front end service kit. Got this from Advanced Auto Parts as they were going out of business. So this has worked great. I've already used it a couple times. This is a combustion leak detector. So what you use is a special fluid, and this goes on the radiator. And what it does is it detects any kind of combustion gases in the coolant, so it kind of helps you know if you have a blown head gasket. These two kits here are for those master lock sets on like BMWs and Porsches and just kind of all those kind of foreign cars. So anytime you think that you might have a wheel lock that the customer can't find, maybe you'll get lucky and get it in one of these. So this is actually a really good kit. I got both of these kits off Amazon used for really cheap, so that works great. This right here I don't do a lot of oil changes, like I said. This is going to be my filter wrench set, so to speak. It works okay. I've used a few of them, only for when the oil filters are just really hard to get to and I can't get anything else on it. I'll bust this out, but I don't use it all that much. And then like I showed you guys before, this is that amp pound. This is a really good tool. So if you do any kind of electrical parasitic draw test, this one's really good. Okay, so for this shelf here, I have a lot of stuff. This is probably my most used shelf on blow molded cases, okay? So this right here is a Mighty Vac. This is an old school. This is one of the ones when they used to still make it in metal. This thing is absolutely fantastic for diagnosing any kind of vacuum issues or modulators or anything that has a diaphragm in it, or, you know, the turbo actuators and stuff like that. This thing, it's really good. If you know how to use it, you can pressurize and you can pull a vacuum. This is a really good test. You can also do it's like a vacuum drop test, where you pull a vacuum on a system and then you wait to see if the vacuum holds or if it falls, then you know that you have a leak there. This one I use a lot. This is going to be my coolant pressure tester kit. This is a cheap one from Harbor Freight Maddox, and it works fantastically. I got the adapter kit as well. I use this thing all the time. Anytime you're going to break into the coolant boundary, you're going to want to use this to make sure that your repair has been done correctly, right? So let's say you change a water pump out and you didn't have this, and you go to put coolant in there, and all the coolant leaks out because you didn't properly check to see if it had a leak beforehand. Well, now you just wasted all that coolant, and you made a mess, and you wasted a bunch of time. So you do the repair, you put this on there, and wow, I had a leak. I had a loose hose, or I didn't torque the water pump down correctly, or whatever it is. This thing is a time saver. It's also fantastic for diagnostics, obviously. So if there's a customer with a coolant leak, put this on there, see where the coolant leak is, and it's a huge time saver. This right here, if you're going to do any kind of bearing or seal work, this is the kit to have. You can get anything. They sell them on Amazon. I got this off Harbor Freight, but this is absolutely fantastic. This is the best way to set bearings, races, and seals. It's so good. You put this on the end of your little handle here, and you hammer it down. There's so many applications this is good for. People misuse them all the time. I think I've misused them a handful of times, but it's really good, super professional, and just the right way to do things. So highly, and they're really cheap. Highly recommend this. This right here is the kit for my brake bleeder, okay? So these are all the adapters, and here's an extra adapter over here. These are all the adapters that go onto the master cylinder, and then that's how you pressurize it. So this is a really great kit. I've had it for a while now. I've gone through a couple of them. This is just, it's really good. And this one that I told you guys before, the Slippery Pete, it comes with the most adapters. You know, the Mighty Vac one is like twice as much, and it has half as many adapters. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, but this is fantastic as well. So you have the Hondas, the old Toyotas, the Chevys, just any kind of adapter you can think of. This fits on there, and it fits on there perfectly. It makes a nice tight seal, and it doesn't leak, so I love that. Okay, this right here is another one of those cheap tools from Maddox. Maddox makes some pretty good stuff. I think this is Maddox, yeah, from Maddox. This is a compression tester kit. Really great. It has a lot of the adapters you need. You know, I probably use this one the most here in the back. This going to those 4 cylinders like Honda's, Toyota, stuff like that. Really, really, really great compression tester kit. So love to have that. If you don't have one, you should. If you're doing any kind of real testing, you can test compression with an oscilloscope. But I found that this is really good to really prove to the customer they can actually see what's going on, which I like to do. That's an old for rear disc brakes that have the internal corkscrew for the parking brake. That's what that's for. And it's kind of not good, but I have it. I don't use it that often, but I have it. And then this is just another kind of master set for fuel pressure testing. So that works great. I mean, I don't have any complaints. It doesn't leak or anything like that. The ones you kind of get at Harbor Freight can be kind of cheap and leak and stuff like that. This one's pretty good. So these are the most used kind of diagnostic type tools that I use, and then they live on this shelf right here. And then for here on the bottom shelf over here, I'll just show you, I like to keep a couple of these bottle jacks, okay? The bottle jacks are good, and then this is a really light 1.5 ton racing jack from Harbor Freight as well. But this is really good if I need to lift up the lower control arm, or let's say I need to compress the spring on a strut or something like that. This is what I use it for. Or even if I need to jack up an engine or change out some motor mounts, whatever, I'll use this one preferentially over anything else because it's so light, it's so easy to maneuver, and it's cheap enough that I can get in there. You know, it's just a really good jack, and it's small and it fits in tight spaces. This is my other jack. This is another one of those kind of fluid extractors, not so great. And I keep some extra trash bags back here. I have some kitty litter in the van too, so if I ever make a big oil leak, the trash, you know, pick it up with kitty litter and go in the trash bag. So, all right, that's it for this side. All right, so this is going to be the driver's side of the van. This is where the only spare nuts and bolts that I keep are going to be these grade 9 metric nuts and bolts. Pretty standard. These work great. They fit a slew of applications, so it's really good. I also keep some of these cheap kind of, fasteners that I don't use very often. This is going to be some spare consumables. So I like to use the red RTV because it's high temperature and it dries quickly. I use this for all kinds of stuff, never had any issues. Some extra 1234. This is an old filling funnel that I used to use, and I moved over to this OEM tools just because I lost a lot of the adapters on that one. So this is, if you're going to be filling up a coolant system, this is the way to go. This is one of the best ways to burp all of the air out of the system. You really want to make sure you don't have any air in your coolant system after you're done with the repair. So this is really good. And you can fill it up, it's clear, so you can see when the thermostat opens and you'll see that coolant level drop. Now you know that, and then you can plug it up and you don't make a mess. This is just a really, really, really good tool. This is going to be kind of the most used consumable items I use, as far as like, I have some cotter pins in there. I got some cheap hose clamps, some hex driven hex cap screws, just all body clips and pins. Now these are my favorite O-rings to use. These are going to be the ones for the HVAC system, the AC system. These are really, really, really good. They last a super long time. They have a wide range of temperature applications. And anytime I have to replace an O-ring, I use one of these, and they last a very, very long time. Really, really great. And then I have some Zerk fittings back there in the back. So this bottom shelf here, like I said, this is going to be for parts. I lay down, this is a really cheap mat that you can get for the back of your car. You get them on AutoZone, they're like $10. I buy these all the time. I lay these down when I'm doing a big job, and they really help for any kind of overflow oil that splashes or anything like that. So this is a really good one. Or if I'm laying in the dirt, I don't want to lay in the dirt. So I lay this down so I can lay on something. I don't get grass all up on my back and stuff like that. Extra parts, sometimes the customers, they can't afford the best parts in the world, so they kind of go with what they can afford with. And I like these Duralast ignition coil multi-packs. They're cheap, they have a good warranty, and they actually last a very long time. I always go with the Delphi fuel pump. Okay, so this is going to be my carburetor type stuff, okay? This is where I keep a lot of my fittings, my vacuum fittings, my vacuum plugs. I keep my carburetor rebuild kits in here for the Edelbrox and the Hollies and stuff like that. This is a spring and metering and jet kit for Edelbrock's special fuel filters and stuff like that. So this is kind of like a Moxnix things, but this is anytime I work on a classic car, this is where I put the parts for that. And then these are the oil catches I use. I actually use them more for like dust catches. So if I'm doing a brake job or if I'm doing a big suspension job or whatever, I'll put this underneath the car, underneath the wheel well or under the brake rotor or whatever to catch all the crap and stuff that falls. If I have to spray penetrant or brake cleaner on there, I don't want it to fall into their driveway. I want it to fall into this. And then I go through these like every other week or so. I'm buying a new one of these. So they're $3. I buy a new one. I just bought that one. They work great for all kinds of stuff. I keep an extra set of gasoline down there. So 2 gallons right there. And I have 2 gallons right there as well. You'd be surprised how many times I've gone to a customer. They think it's their fuel pump. And it turns out they ain't got no gas in it. Happens all the time. Spare blue rags down here. This is a pneumatic fan clutch kit. Even though I don't have an air hammer on the van, I don't have an air compressor, you can still use these with a regular hammer. So I don't get a lot of use of these anymore nowadays because, most cars have electric fans, but still works great. Once again, this is from Maddox. Okay, this is another really great tool that I use a lot for bearings. I have a couple of different methods to remove front wheel drive wheel bearings. This is one of them. So throw this on there, slide it out. I have a video on it. I'll show you guys one of these days. If this doesn't work, I do the old method where I cut out the lug nut studs and then I put another bolt in there and I jack it out that way. But this works really well on a lot of the cars. So yeah, this is really good. Okay, so now we're going to move into the nightmare of the van, which is the back. So just give me... all of these kits right here I'm about to show you live in the back of that van there. So we're going to go through these kits and I'll show you some of the other stuff that's easier to see back there. But first and foremost, this is going to be for ball joints, okay? This is absolutely fantastic. This is from Maddox. I know that Snap-on makes a really good one. It's crazy expensive. I've done so many ball joints with this and I've never had any issues with it. That's the add-on kit right there. Got to have those. They go kind of hand in hand. They work really great. I also like to write down, so I use the paint pen to write down, so I know that this is 22 millimeter. So I have to guess, and I have a bad memory, so I know that's 22 millimeter. I do the same thing over here, so I know that this is a 32 millimeter hex. This is going to be for the front wheel drive wheel bearings. Okay, so this is how you kind of press them out and press them in as well. So this is really, really, really great for that. Super, super great kit. Like I said, it's from Maddox as well. I've used this many, many, many times. Haven't had any issues. So I really, really, really like this kit. Would highly recommend all 3 of these. This right here is a bearing puller. I use it for things that it's not supposed to be used for all the time. But this is another one from Maddox. You got to have one of these. It has a small and a large. It's just, what can I say? It's a good kit. It's for pulling out those bearings that you can't hardly get to. You put a jack and screw on here and you zip it out with an impact. Works really great. This is my kind of Dremel assortment, kit. This is the scale that I use. I like to keep it in the box still. It's one of the few things I keep in the box. This is the scale I use when I'm adding or removing refrigerant. If you're EPA certified, you got to keep track of the amount of refrigerant you remove on every single vehicle, the day, time, all that good stuff. But it's also really good for letting me know how much refrigerant I'm putting into the vehicle. So this is a 90-pound capacity, so I like to use those little 12 or 24-ounce cans. Weigh the can before and after so you know how much refrigerant you're putting into the vehicle. So this is a really good kit. You don't want to guess how much refrigerant you're putting in. And you always, 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 always add the refrigerant in by weight, which I feel like maybe not everybody does. Okay, and then here's some other kind of plastic fastener kit that I keep from Harbor Freight. This is another one that I just picked this up. This is like a plug kit. So we'll see how well these work. Haven't used them yet. And then I also keep, this is my refrigerant. So anytime I do any kind of refrigerant work, this comes out. Okay, so for a while I was rocking one AC manifold gauge that I would use for 1234 and 134, and I'm not supposed to, but I did it anyway. So I have extra couplers for that. I also have extra couplers for just in case some of mine fail. I have extra hoses. This is like a filter for my evacuating unit. This is the power cable. I like to keep all the extra O-rings and everything in here. So this is just a really good kit that I break out anytime I do refrigerant work. Okay, I think I told you guys before, but I also have this Icon AC manifold gauge. I have the Snap-on one here and it works absolutely great, but I also have this Icon one, and it also works really good. I bought this one kind of on the in-between. So yeah, works great. Back here, this is where I keep my other service cart. So anytime I do AC work, this gets busted out, and then I'll have my evacuation unit. I have my purge tank. I have my vacuum pump right here. So all of those kind of come out and they lay on this, and then this will come out and go on the bottom shelf. All this comes out, and that way I can do all of my work, and I don't have to bend over, put anything on the ground and stuff like that. So this works really, really great for that. This is one of those McPherson strut compressor kits I bought off Amazon, or excuse me, bought it at Harbor Freight on sale. I don't do a lot of those strut compression springs because I always try to install loaded suspension components. So if it's a strut that has the spring on the outside of it, I like to replace it all as one unit. It's actually cheaper for the customer for me to do that and get a new spring than it is to pay me the labor to transfer all the stuff over. So I don't really do that because I like to recommend that other thing. Okay, so this is for flaring. So you have the ISO flaring kit and the standard flaring kit. This is I bought from Harbor Freight years and years and years ago. I don't really use it, but as I hate doing that kind of work, but there it is. So right here, I have some extra blow molded cases I just haven't gotten rid of. Back there in the bottom, that's going to be like spare tools. So if I were to open that up, you'd just see like wrenches and sockets and just all kinds of crap, pipe wrenches, just stuff that you don't use ever. But I have them there just in case. That's going to be my my refrigerant evacuation unit. Like I said, this is my purge tank. I have another tank for 1234 as well. That's going to be my Milwaukee M18 vacuum. That thing is a lifesaver. And then back here, this is a slide hammer, but it's specifically for CV axles. So this one's really great. It has like a hook on the bottom. It's got those pickle forks in the back. It's just really good for exclusively for popping out CV axles. I've had some pretty good luck, and the hammer's nice and heavy on it too, so I really like that. So up here, you have some O-rings that I just don't use anymore. And then this right here, if you guys know what this is, throw it in the comments. Not many people, maybe the old timers know what this is. This is for adjusting. This is called a dwell meter. Okay, this is for adjusting points on any of those ignition systems that still use points. Yes, you can set points using like an old matchbook or feeler gauge or something like that, or you can do it by vacuum. Like there's a ton of ways to do it. This right here though, this is the way to do it. Whether or not you have a 4-cylinder, 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder, whatever it is, this is really good. And what it does is it measures the amount of dwell time or delay time from the signal. So this is just really, really good if you know how to use it. Not many people know how to use it, but I think it even has a thing on the back, which I've never used. But yeah, this is just really, really good for working on those classic cars, which I still do a lot of because people don't like to touch them. Now this right here is the M12 compressor for airing up tires, but really what I use it for is like a blowgun. So I'll put like an attachment on the end, and this is what I'll use to blow out like those intake manifolds and all that other stuff to clean out all the crap that's in there before I start working. I really don't air up customers' tires. It doesn't make sense for me. I don't have the means for it. So this is what I use it for. This is some extra fluid, some of that synthetic .3, .4. This is like some cheap stuff I got. I think it was actually given to me from one of the parts warehouse to try out, but I don't use it. That's the box for my Snap-on AC manifold gauge, some extra boxes back there. This is what I use for coolant systems. Anytime I drain them out, I like to use those instead of anything else. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the van. I'll show you a quick video of the van when it's fully loaded out so you can kind of see what it looks like on a daily basis. So this is pretty much the van setup. I did want to show you guys one thing I forgot to talk about. So this is my crash bag for vacuum hoses and fuel line. So I just grab this whole bag when I do any kind of fuel line or vacuum line work. I just get it cheap from AutoZone or O'Reilly's. I get I actually kind of get the whole loom of it. And then this is a PVC cutter. I like to use this for cutting up the hoses. This works really, really good for getting a nice, clean, straight cut. It takes a little bit while to use it, but it's meant for PVC, and it just works great for you. Get a nice clean cut. So yeah, this kind of lives on top of that jack over there. And like I said, anytime I have, so it's off to the side, anytime I have a big part or a bunch of parts, let's say I have a bunch of brake rotors I'm doing for the day, or just a lot of stuff, it'll all kind of line up here in the middle. And then as I go, I kind of throw it out, and then like a window regulator, whatever it is, it'll all kind of live right here. So this is the setup. Like I said, this cart comes out. This goes on top of the cart. All the parts and extra tools and stuff that I pull out for it will go on the middle and bottom shelf. That's my brake part. That's my brake job crash bag, so to speak. And that's pretty much it, guys. And obviously my umbrella lives up here too. I got an extra up here. I have a large kind of catch for big debris. I don't pull it out that much, but it's nice to have. So, all right, yeah, guys, that's it. That's the van. That's the van I've been telling you guys about for a long time. If you guys have any questions, if I didn't cover something that you wanted to see, or for anything like that, you let me know in the comments below, and give me some advice, guys. What do you think I could do to improve my efficiency? You know, what do you do in your setup? Kind of what are some of the tools that I showed you guys that you're like, nah, it's not good, or there's a better alternative, or you're missing this tool for this job, or whatever it is. Let me know in the comments below. And starting next week, I'll be putting out some tool review videos like I've been telling you guys, kind of showing you my experiences and some of the tools that I have. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, like I said, let me know in the comments below. And thanks again for watching, guys.